Welcome back. Let's continue our discussions around electricity as, of course, that's part of our focus on the SABC News channel today. Now, Minister Kgosientsho Ramokgopa yesterday pledged that he'd be ultra-aggressive, he says, in implementing renewable energy to address the country's electricity crisis. Let's get a sense of how this is faring so far. Bring in our guest. Matthew Cruz is an energy expert with Forest Energy and joins us now via our video link. Matthew, it's lovely to have you on the SABC. Thanks very much indeed for making time. You know, the government has been accused for years of dragging its feet when it comes to finally bringing on board renewable energy so that we can finally get through our crisis. A number of IRPs have been issued since things really started taking off. And as a start, I wonder if you reckon we finally have the kind of pace and political will to ensure that there are alternative energy sources in this country outside of Eskom.
Yes, thank you for having me on the show and hello to your viewers. This is good to see from the new electricity minister, or the new scope that he has received of electricity and energy. And it is a departure from the previous approach that was put forward by Kgosientsho. And this is evidence in looking at the IRP 2023 proclamation of how much renewable should come online by 2030. In the one that is currently in place, the IRP as it stands, it's 13,000 megawatts. And the electricity minister, thankfully, has said that he wants to be ultra aggressive on renewables and that he wants to get 20,000 megawatts onto the grid by 2030. So this is an exciting progression. It does mean that there is going to be a focus on upgrading the transmission system to be able to accommodate for all of this renewable to come online. And we have heard from Eskom Transmission Company, or the new National Transmission Company, that cost will be about 270 billion rand that is needed from private investments, as they don't have money to do that, for expanding the grid in order to accommodate this amount of renewable energy to come online by then.
Yeah, the renewable space, of course, is itself contested. There's people who, for whatever reasons, suggest that there are different things that we should be doing. I wonder whether you have any kind of clarity of mind around which kind of renewable energy, if there's any single one, that's best placed for South Africa's unique position. And of course, in this case, I'm referring to our own resources that are available for us, you know, the amount of sun, for example, we get, the wind, etc.
Great, yeah, that's a brilliant question. And it really comes down to an energy mix. It's not one bullet that will be able to win the day in this. And the reason why I say that, I can go quickly through the different types of renewable energy. So solar, it's really nice and cheap, but it provides you power during the middle of the day. That's when our peak is the lowest, or our demand is the lowest in the country. We have our peaks in the evenings and then the mornings as a country. So solar is very nice and cheap, very quick to deploy, but it unfortunately doesn't meet the peak demand that takes place in the evenings and mornings. Wind is able to meet mornings and evenings demand. However, it's when the wind is blowing, so it's variable. So you need some kind of storage in place. And unfortunately, the storage that's looking like from the battery side, the lithium-ion storage, is looking very expensive. So we need then to look at hydroelectric storage. And unfortunately, that is limited in the country, as there's limited places where there's high elevations of places with water, with a dam at the bottom as well, where the water can be pumped up and down for pump storage. So there's limitation in terms of hydro storage. So now we have to look at things that are dispatchable. So that looks like natural gas. And unfortunately, relying on our coal network. So we have heard that we're going to be only shutting down our coal power stations past when they were scheduled to shut down, as they are able to provide power in the mornings and evenings. And this then also comes down to the form of renewable energy, where you have the solar and battery system installed at your business. And I see here some nice pictures of carports. That's a perfect example, because as a business, then you're able to take care of your own energy needs, and you have then the ability to get a battery that specifies your demand and brings down your demand when you have it in your evenings and your mornings, as it's much more financially viable to do that as a business, because that's when the electricity is more expensive. So a mix is recommended, and businesses are recommended to get enough solar and batteries to take care of their energy needs.
Yeah, on the solar front, of course, we know government is planning to introduce tariffs in order to make it more expensive to bring solars into the country. You'll correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's already kicked in. And there's been all kinds of reaction, of course, because on the one hand, questions are being asked around why government is making it harder for people to get solar panels in, given the fact that this very well may fit into our solution. Government is hitting back, saying that, in fact, they're going to use this opportunity, this transition, if you like, to ensure that it comes with job creation here at home. Are we striking the right balance in trying to, I suppose, reconcile these two things, you know, solving the employment crisis in the country while simultaneously solving our energy issues?
So yeah, they're very good to talk on this one. So it's basically a 10% tax that has been implemented on solar panels coming into the country, or solar panels coming in. And it was in light of trying to stimulate solar panel production or manufacturing of solar panels in the country.
Right.
I unfortunately do not see this as being a method for actually stimulating the local economy in terms of manufacturing of solar panels, because mainly the solar panels that come from China are already at 40% less than what you can get from Art Solar, which is the manufacturer that's in South Africa that's just puts the aluminum frames that are imported from Europe onto the solar wafers that are imported from China. So that action of just putting them on is not, in my mind, that much value adding, but it is very expensive. And so that Art Solar was set up for REIPP bid window 134 and became unviable and was sitting at 30% capacity after this bid window is finished. So there are ways of stimulating the economy, but I don't think this is the correct one. However, the 10% tax, it will be able to be used to incentivize businesses. As we saw, there's a tax rebate that took place. 125% of the value of a system can be rebated from SARS by a business. So that kind of rebate does need to be funded somehow. So this solar tax import can be funded, can be used. That money can be used for incentivizing businesses and South Africa to go renewable. So I do see it as a give and take, and I'm much more confident with this this new government that we have that the money will actually be used for that and for stimulating jobs. I would say the money would be better used stimulating jobs in training people how to do installations and upskilling people from, even you can take a grade 6 and you can start teaching them how to work doing labor on solar sites, on homes and businesses, and being an installer and starting to upskill them. So I would say use the money for training and upskilling skills in the renewable sector so that the people can have jobs doing installations, not so much producing the solar panels. So I do have confidence that the money will be used correctly, more so than previously, and that it will be used for stimulating the renewable sector in South Africa.
Right. Let's speak about nuclear. It almost feels like a very contentious political term, given our relationship that we've had with nuclear energy in the country. I mean, in the past, I think it was around April of 2017, South Africa tried to get the Russians, I think it was, on board to try to build some kind of nuclear plant. That was killed dead in the water. We're now hearing of a new kind of plant that might see a 2,500 megawatt power station being built. And even that is facing some kind of political backlash, if you like. Help our viewers distill through what the plan is and perhaps what some of your concerns are, if there are any, when it comes to bringing on board more nuclear capacity in South Africa.
Great. So I'd say there's pros and cons for nuclear. So the pros that I see is that it is green energy as defined by the European Union. So it is defined as a low carbon method of getting electricity, and it has very low impact on the environment, both in terms of its footprint. It's very small, where relative to the size that is needed from a solar farm or wind turbines to produce the amount of electricity, and also the fuel that is used is very clean. However, there's some cons to it, where it does take a long time to come online. So it takes 8 to 10 years to actually get deployed. We have an exciting news, specifically from the South African design and creating now pebble bed modular reactors, so SMRs, small modular reactors for nuclear, where South Africa will be able to produce and create our own and then export small modular reactors that can be operated inland and doesn't need water. Very exciting to see. However, I do see it takes a long time for that to become viable in the marketplace, and will take then about 8 years to actually come down and put power onto the grid. So it takes a long time, so that's the downside. In terms of the political back and forth about nuclear, I think it is quite politicized. I do think nuclear is safe and we should deploy it. It'll be able to provide power in the mornings and the evenings when it's needed most, and it is quite cheap in terms of the power that can come down. It just will take a long time to come into the country, unfortunately.
Yeah. In the meantime, of course, we still have a heavy reliance on Eskom and coal-fired fleet or coal-fired power stations. I can't help but also notice the debate around whether or not it's worth upgrading and maintaining those power stations, or if it's time to allow them to be phased out as more renewable comes in. What's your kind of sober take on that? Because I think, depending who you listen to, you might also be swayed in different directions because of, for example, the environmental impact of coal in the universe, in the country.
Yes. And in the environment, so yeah, 100%. I come from Eskom. I worked there for 11, so I understand the benefits of coal. And what I see, there's two main camps. There's people that speak very negatively about coal, typically from the renewable sector, and then there's people that speak very positively about coal, and that's typically from the coal camp, from Gode previously mentioning that coal is cheap. It can provide power in the evenings and the mornings. It can also then stimulate lots of jobs, as we are able to then have like the mining sector working well with extracting the coal, and a lot of jobs at the power stations, and stimulating a lot the economy. So what I find is that both camps, is the renewable camp, like I sit in the renewable camp, and then the coal camp, they kind of speak exclusively negatively about the other camp. They don't kind of give a balanced view on what are the pros and cons of each. So I'd say the pros are the ones that I mentioned, cheap power. It does give you then power in the mornings and evenings, so you can actually then meet your peak demand. Without having the coal, the power that would be needed in the evenings would be 4 times more expensive, because we need to use diesel almost exclusively in the country to create power for them. So the technologies that you need for creating power in the evenings are very expensive. So your power cost would just escalate extensively if you shut down all the power stations now. So unfortunately, yes, there is a negative impact on the environment from the coal being fired. It impacts both local and the global environments, unfortunately. And unfortunately, though, I'm saying that word unfortunately, it seems like a necessary evil in the context that we have in South Africa, where we have too little power. And if we have to shut down our power stations now, we'd have a national blackout, as it provides 80% of our electricity.
Absolutely.
We do need to phase out sustainably, and that's what we are seeing, thankfully, from the minister.
Yeah, it just seems that we're all going to have to be patient even as we embark on this transition, if in fact we end up going in that direction. Matthew Cruz, lovely speaking to you. Thanks very much indeed for giving us your take on these sometimes very contentious issues. Matthew Cruz is an energy expert with Forest Energy, helping us make sense of the country's current supply and what perhaps the future may have in store if we are, as I mentioned, to transition into renewable energy. We've been asking you, as part of our question of the